Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and deeply unprofessional. I totally missed that I didn't have a screen up at the start, so you guys just saw us kind of sitting here talking amongst ourselves. At least we were muted. Welcome back to another How We Felt About. I've got my son Jayson here, I've got John, and I've got Robert. And we gotta come with Robert if we want to live, apparently. Tonight we're going to tell you how we felt about the new Netflix anime series Terminator Zero, and this is pretty lickety split for us for a streaming show or for a TV for a season of TV right when it comes out. And this one was, short and kind of easily digestible, and we were really curious about it. I didn't know about this show, you guys, until days before it dropped.
Yeah, me too.
Like, I saw a teaser for it. And like the Wednesday before when we did the Captain Logan show, and it was just about to come out a couple of days, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days later, and I was like, ooh, that looks really interesting, I gotta see that. And I thought the animation looked really cool, and I was really excited about just like music cues and stuff. Like, it looked great. And so I was like, oh, I'm watching that, we're gonna have to review that. And then I didn't realize we were gonna have a panel. I thought it might just be me and Jayson, but thanks to John and Robert for also checking this out and popping in. I was kind of hoping maybe Austin would make it too, because Austin and I have done some Terminator stuff in the past, but he didn't get around to it, and we'll see if he ends up wanting to watch the show later on. I'm curious to see what he would think of this, but we got a good sized panel, and we're gonna go ahead and jump right into it. Jayson, why don't you give us a real brief setup for what the show is about? So for synopsis, don't spoil anything, but just give us kind of the basic premise and what the format is like and all of that. And guys, as always, and by the way, thanks for being here if you're watching live. Thanks for watching after the fact if you're doing that. We're going to do our typical non-spoiler section first. We'll treat it as a old-fashioned How We Felt About, give you our personal best thing, worst thing, and sign flip, and then we'll talk spoilers a little bit after that, although we're going to try to keep it as close to an hour tonight as possible, because we're starting very late, and we've got folks that with us tonight that can't stay too late. So this will be a little bit more overview than sometimes we would be with a TV show, but we'll still do some spoiler talk at the end of this. And if you're watching live right now and there are any aspects you want to make sure that we talk about after the non-spoiler section, make sure to leave a comment or a super chat, and we will get to as many things as you guys mention that we have time for. Jayson, why don't you kind of break it down for us a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So it's it's set in a slightly futuristic 1997, where we've got some robots, but
we're talking, this is just Japan in 1997. They had robots at toy stores helping you pick out things.
Yeah. But it wasn't it. They're not super developed like what we see later in Terminators, but society is definitely getting there. And we've got the main character, Malcolm Lee, who is this black guy who's got 3 kids, and he knows somehow about Judgment Day and how it is going to happen tomorrow. And so he knows that they are going to launch Skynet, and so he is building an AI system called Kokoro, which is built to kind of defend against Skynet. And so he's kind of working under the clock to get Kokoro running, to get go against Skynet.
And to convince that AI to save us.
Yes. Meanwhile, it's actually a lot now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, his kids are being...
It feels real simple while you're watching it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, his kids are being babysitted by, they're like... He has like a maid, kind of.
He's got a live-in babysitter.
A little bit of babysitter. What's her name?
Masaki, yeah.
And so she is like letting the kids play with toys that he doesn't want them to, and she knows that, but she does it anyway. And because they're like kind of AI type there's this like AI cat toy, right?
Yep.
And then there's a Terminator that comes from the future, and then a woman who comes from the future who's a good guy, and then they're both trying to stop Malcolm from launching Kokoro.
Yeah.
Basically.
So interestingly, they sort of have the same mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in different fashions. Yeah.
Well, that's a good setup there, Jayson.
Yeah.
It's 8 episodes.
Yes.
And a lot of people, I guess I'll just get this out of the way right now. A lot of people that haven't seen this yet have been asking me if it is canonical with Terminator, and without giving too much away, with like any or all of the movies, and without giving it away, I think the correct answer to that is yes, and no if you don't want it to be. Because it basically, this show lays out its rules for time travel very specifically, and if you don't want this to be exactly how Terminator works and you want to headcanon that away with everything else, you can kind of get away with that. But if you want to take it at face value, it basically turns the various contradictory timelines of Terminator into almost its own multiverse, and really anything can count the way it lays it out, and it makes the kind of philosophical questions in Terminator like more concrete. In some ways it's more interesting, and in some ways it's less so, I think, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. Let's start with Robert, I think, because he dressed for the occasion, and
I did.
And Robert, give us your best thing, worst thing, and your sign flip here.
So, kind of like you, the show sort of snuck up on me. I know I heard about it like a couple years ago. I wasn't paying much attention to it until the trailer came out. I was very curious. I'd say I'm a lifelong Terminator fan, even though there's only 2 movies I really love in this franchise, and everything after that's of varying quality. Best thing about this, I'd say, for me, was the vibe. And just tone, atmosphere,
Yeah.
world building, the brutality. This makes the Terminator scary again. I really appreciated that. So just all of that, just the vibe. They got it. It took me back to those first 2 movies in a great way. Worst thing isn't entirely fair, because it's sort of, the show starts in a place of not being what I want it to be, and then kind of getting there by the end. And what I mean is, on face value, the way Jayson was laying it out, if you're walking into this kind of cynically, it's like, yeah, it's the Terminator again. A robot goes back in time, a good guy goes back in time, they're going after the same person. Yeah, we made the same movie over and over again. But as you get into the show, it becomes considerably more complex and kind of putting its own spin on it that I appreciated. But my actual worst thing is just, I do wish we spent more time in the future up front. With our main protagonist lady who is going back in time. I really wish we got to know her more before we do the time travel stuff. And we do get some flashbacks later that are pretty cool, that flesh some things out. And then by the finale, there's a couple things I have questions about. But that's my actual worst thing, is I just wish we spent more time in the future up front. Because, I mean, what I wanted the show to be is just finally just humans in the future versus Skynet versus Terminators. Just make that movie already. We kind of got that with Salvation, but that was also its own thing. But whatever, it's a time travel story. Like you said, it's very concerned with the time travel and the rules and how it fits with the canon, and that stuff I appreciated. So yeah, that's my best thing. Worst thing. Sign flip. I got these out. This is my beautiful red Terminator case, even though I love this movie. And then I put the T2 Blu-ray in a green case, even though I don't think the color green ever shows up in that movie. But it's fine. It's for the video to work, for the sign flip. So yeah, love both these movies. But
Where did you get a green Blu-ray case?
That is a good question. From my Blu-ray copy of The Incredible Hulk, 2008.
Of course.
Yeah, that is like my one Blu-ray. So I just swapped it out.
I was going to say, it's going to be either Hulk or Ninja Turtles.
Or some Xbox game, I don't know.
It could have been an Xbox game, that's true.
That is correct, but I've never owned an Xbox. But I'm flipping green. I did like the show. The thing you're going to hear a lot is, it's the best Terminator thing since Terminator 2, which is like giving it a participation trophy. That's not saying a whole lot, but I'm genuine when I say I really liked this. I've got some issues, I've got some questions. I can't say I love it top to bottom. We can get more into that in spoilers, but overall, I will say, yeah, it's not just it for me. It's more than just fine. I really, really liked this. As a longtime Terminator fan, this is the most like new Terminator thing I've enjoyed in a long time, and I really appreciate that about it. So yeah, I'm flipping green. I liked it.
Yeah, Robert, great, well thought out review, and you gave a lot more thought to your presentation than I did with the glasses and the cases, and that was wonderful. Robert, real quick before we go to John, I'll just add to what you said about the participation award. I mean, imagine if somebody made a really great Jurassic Park anime.
That would be great.
You know? And then everybody would be like, oh, that's the best Jurassic Park thing since Jurassic Park. It's like, yeah, it's not hard. And there's been a lot of them. Let's hear from John next.
So I like Terminator okay. I mean, the first two are great movies, but it's not a universe that I'm really invested in. I like 3 well enough as just a dumb action film.
And the ending of that movie slaps.
And the ending,
like 3 is whatever, but that ending kills.
Salvation might be my favorite sequel post 2, just because it is so different. And Salvation is what I wanted this to be.
Again, it's not hard.
No, and I mean, I haven't seen Genesis, but Dark Fate might be one of the worst things I've ever had to sit through.
And you've now redeemed yourself, John. I'm right back there with you. Now you make sense in my head again.
So I had heard about this, but I kind of forgot about it until there was a Netflix leak, and this was one of the shows that was affected by that leak. Like, whole episodes leaked early. I didn't really seek them out because I've got Netflix, I'll just wait. But I went into this completely blind. I didn't watch any trailers or anything. I think this is half of a really good show, and half of a show where I'm just not as invested. The stuff with the AI and its creator, I think, is pretty cool, and it's a different way to take a Terminator entry. But I felt like everything else was just like all the stuff that I've seen 100 times in this franchise. Terminator, good person has to save them, and some of the storylines, like the babysitter or whatever storyline, just kind of drug for me. And I wish we'd given more of that time to Malcolm and his AI creation. So best thing is just like the AI stuff, and worst thing is just Malcolm or the kids subplot for the most part. There's things I liked about it, but overall it's like, go back to the other storyline. But I did like the Terminator. I watched this in the English dub. I don't know which version you guys watched, but that is Timothy Olyphant, who Cap knows best as the Hitman in that god-awful Hitman movie.
The original Hitman, yeah. Hey, John, that's going too far, okay? It's only awful. Okay, it's not god-awful, it's only awful.
Oh, okay. But he's better known as the guy in Scream 2. But no, I like him a lot. He's just like a character guy that shows up and stuff, so I was glad to see him here. This is a really light green. I almost went like light red, but I think at the end of the day, I'm going to go light green because the stuff I liked was pretty good.
Did you enjoy it better on a second watch, or did that make any difference for you?
If I had watched this once, it would have been a red.
Okay.
But no, the Malcolm stuff, all started to click with me on a second viewing.
Austin just popped in the chat and says that Robert looks like he's about to bet his daughter in a poker game. That's so good. Just so everybody knows, Robert does not have a daughter to bet in a poker game. But
as far as I know,
he's gonna bet his he's gonna bet his red and green Terminator cases. Now I'm just imagining like a Terminator themed Christmas party.
I will say the green one is better than the red one movie wise.
Movie-wise, yeah, it's a good point.
I will say, like those were the ones to go with.
So, John, I knew just because of some stuff you had mentioned to me that you weren't real high on this show. Your review surprised me a little bit, because the stuff that I thought you weren't latching onto this was the stuff you latched onto, And it's certainly the stuff that I most latched onto also. I'm going to let Jayson go before me. But I really thought you were going to come in and say that all of the, like, philosophical, like, scientist talking with Kokoro stuff was boring. And I'm really surprised that you liked the just, like, long talky stuff. Because that's what I liked. And I thought you were going to say that stuff was boring.
I was surprised, too, because...
I'm not calling you dense or anything. I thought you might have been like, no, like give me, you know, keep the action going. It's Terminator. Like that. That's really cool to me because when I latched onto this was all the classic, you know, kind of Philip K. Dick-esque science fiction stuff.
So it's funny because I also, like I said, if I'd watched if my review was just based on the first time, I would have been right there. I was like, oh, that stuff's all really boring, but I also don't like the other storyline that's going. Because I don't know what it is, but like the action in this just didn't really keep me as engaged as it should have. But this is the show that made me realize like the reason that I like T2 is the action. Like I don't care about the like philosophical debates in those movies or like the, you know, what it could mean. I like it because it's an Arnold movie.
Yeah.
Now you know, obviously T2 is smarter than your average Arnold movie, and then Terminator 1 is the world's most complicated slasher movie. But you know, that's what I like about those. I wouldn't say that the like AI stuff, like I wouldn't rewatch this show again probably just for that. But when I was watching, I was like, oh, I'm seeing some cool things here. But it's also one of the worst arguments that I've ever heard between man and AI at parts, because he's like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I stopped that because I realized I was about to spoil something.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right though. There are a couple places where he basically comes out and says, "Yeah, you know what? Kill us all. It's fine." You're probably right. But that's the drama of those moments. Is like, what can he say? And I don't know about you, but like I was kind of with him in those bits where it's like, yeah, I don't know how you win that argument, at least in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean that is the tough part. But like, I think my issue is, I guess, slight spoilers for this conversation.
Yeah.
He doesn't list any like achievement that mankind has. Like, surely there's got to be something. I'm not like a history buff, but there's something he could have said that like mankind has done to make the world better.
Yeah, and then I found myself, I'm with you, like I'm not a history buff either, and then I found myself going, I don't know what exactly that thing is. Like if I knew you know, my science and stuff better, like maybe I could point to that thing where here's an ecosystem we fixed, or you know whatever. But I also feel like anything he'd go to would seem so minor in the grand scheme of like human destruction and warfare and all of that like I don't know. I kind of bought into it.
And also what he's saying definitely fits into like the themes of the Terminator universe in general, just like in how like just dark it is. And so the fact that like we are in the Terminator universe and he can't come up with anything that that people have done right, like that it works for Terminator.
You're right. That's the cynical theme of that.
Yeah.
And the nature nurture thing. Like, can we turn ourselves around? We haven't yet in our history.
Yeah. So I feel like it would be out of character for that franchise to go that
John,
way.
I did have that question, and it was more just do I know enough to criticize this?
That's the other thing. It's like I don't know if I know enough. Like I'm you know I'm. However, he also has my favorite moment. The reason that ended up being my best thing is there's that moment where he's talking about how they keep sending Terminators back to like kill key people and how stupid it is.
Yeah,
and I laughed really hard.
No, that was great. We'll get to our other sign flips here in a second, guys. Carl Maxey says, does the theme humanity sucks get kind of cliche? And he says, doesn't art count as something humanity has done right? So in the context of the conversation that those two characters are having, it's not just like that actually sort of, way comes up later. the idea of abstract thinking, and that the common ground, again, minor spoilers, but the common ground that that this guy, this AI and his creator will come to some degree, is that both want to find patterns. Both want to find meaning in what appears to be just natural chaos. And so in that way, Carl, you're right about the art thing. But in that earlier conversation that we're talking about, the question is more, has humanity ever done anything to better the world itself? Like the environment around them, beyond just doing things that are self-serving. And John, I feel like the larger question for her in that moment, and one of the things I found really interesting about it, is that she is in her way also self-serving and trying to protect herself. Like the bigger question is, can I trust that your species won't turn on me the way your creation in Skynet is turning on you, and in the way you're going to turn on them? So the bigger thing is, like, can there be any harmony? Is it going to be just kill or be killed with us the same way it clearly is going to be in the future with you and Skynet? So it's all about self-preservation.
Can I edit that too?
Yeah.
Were any of you guys thinking about shut up, John. Were any of you guys thinking about the debates Laurie has with Dr. Manhattan and Watchmen?
Yeah.
Because I was feeling that this whole way through. Like, when he's on Mars talking about, like, do you think this would be better with a shopping mall? You know, these are the types of arguments or debates they're having. And yeah, that stuff I thought was great. Malcolm Lee's probably my favorite character in the show. Like, all that stuff's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, my mind went to that. Like, that's the entire point of Mass Effect at the end of the day, the game trilogy. There's, I've seen this kind of play out in different science fiction stories. So my mind just kind of went to the general, like, I've seen this before. This is slightly different, which is cool. And it just it gave me something to be excited about with Terminator again after the last at least 2 movies.
Yeah, there's maybe nothing wholly new here, but I like the way it's redressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just depends on how much you like this stuff. I've seen Blade Runner, I've seen Westworld, and if you like time travel and you like stories about robots and artificial intelligence, there's gonna be something you like, John. Here, I don't know if there's much here, like you guys said, that I haven't seen before, but I think it's executed pretty well for the most part. You just have to be into this type of science fiction.
Yeah. Or you have to like anime, or like you said, Robert, the tone of this. I could see if you're like a younger person that maybe sees one of the Terminator movies and thinks that's cool and might enjoy this, and then this could be your introduction to some of these really classic ideas and themes. Like, I don't think you have to already know them. I think this could be a cool window into some of the source stuff that this is absolutely going all the way back to the classic literature, going all the way back to your Asimovs and the later your Philip K. Dicks and that kind of stuff.
And I will say, to this show's credit, it comes out at like the perfect time, because I just showed my friend the original Terminator, and like he didn't know anything about it, didn't like know a thing about it, so I got to experience that like through him. So I was like ready for this.
That's cool. Let's go ahead and get Jason's sign flip.
Sure.
What do you think, man?
So my best thing is pretty much the same thing as John's. That subplot with subplot with Malcolm and the AI is just really good.
That'd be your A story.
And
be your AI story.
His AI story.
Right.
And so yeah, the whole thing where he's just and it kind of becomes a plot point too, where not to get too into spoilers, but just how he finds himself by just talking to AI. Like, I think that really says something about his character, and it really it's a really good kind of story thing to help the audience figure out what his character's like.
Yeah, and you're right. It's self-discovery through basically just a conversation.
Yeah, which
throughout
is awesome.
Almost an entire show.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's real action happening there, even though it's all through dialogue.
Yeah. So unlike John, I actually liked the action. I thought it was very. It reminded me a lot of Terminator 2. They steal whole like scenes from Terminator 2 in action, or whole like shots from Terminator 2 sometimes in action. Which is fine.
All
I mean,
the
they're
way,
calling back.
but can I say this real quick?
Yeah.
All the way through the show, Jason and I had this running gag. So I watched it through on my own, most of it. I watched the first 7 episodes, so I didn't see the last one yet. Just working out all last week, and then Jason and I binged it over 2 days together. So I saved the last episode and we watched it together, and that was fun. But all throughout it, we had this running gag where it was just constantly, you know why that's there? Because of Terminator. It's like, you know why this scene is happening on a bridge? Because of Terminator. You know why that guy's a cop with sunglasses? Because Terminator. Just constantly. And like, they went really like nitty gritty and deep too. It's like, you know why we're looking at a road right now at the opening of the set? Because of Terminator.
Yeah, that's the coolest one though. But and I also want to say that I did like how they incorporated the horror element in this. I do really like.
That's a great point.
What they did. It did the very Terminator thing where it did make me laugh a bit with how they do the horror stuff, but it actually is kind of scary. But I'm gonna say my worst thing is kind of has to do with action, but really just story in general, and mainly with the plot with the kids. But there's so many like fake outs where you'll be like, and I'm not getting into major spoilers or anything. This is just this happens a lot where it'll be like, oh, boom, gunshot, and then you cut, and then oh no, he's not dead. Something else happened. He just shot it up for no reason.
And they never one time get you with that. You always know whoever it is you thought was going to die was not going to... You never actually thought that.
And then it's like, oh, is he going to push this button or is he going to push this button? Oh, I don't know. And then it's like, oh, he reaches for this button. Oh, wait, no, he pushed this button. It's like, stop. So, yeah, that was... That got annoying, and it did it too much. It became like a trope for that show.
A little too teasy.
Too teasy. But overall, it's a good movie. I mean, it's a good show. It's a good anime. It's a good. I'm gonna say it's probably the best of the Netflix animes that I've seen. It did a really good. They did a really good job incorporating Terminator into that style of, that Netflix anime kind of like 3D kind of anime thing that Netflix does with Castlevania and Godzilla.
It incorporates its CG really well.
Yeah, it does.
There's a lot of places where you can tell they went 3D, but like they mesh their 2D and 3D like really respectively, I think.
Really well, yeah.
A lot of animes I've noticed have started doing that, especially like the last 2 Dragon Ball movies kind of seamlessly transition into CGI for some bits.
Yeah, and I like the mix in scene, John, where they're integrated. Where isn't just net because a lot of those like DC direct-to-video movies will have like that token like CG vehicle shot, but this show will have a lot of 2D on top of a thing that's also got some 3D in it. That's always it looks nice. Yeah. Jayson, what you just said segues really well into a big point I wanted to make at the start of my bit, and I'll try to be brief, which is, guys, I want this for everything. Like after sitting through this, and Netflix has had some other things kind of like this, like the Castlevania show, which Jayson you've not seen and is quite a bit rougher than this, and I don't know if maybe a couple of years before I would have you watch that show, but as far as, so I don't think I would, I don't know if I would put this above Castlevania. I don't think I can say this is the best of these I've seen, but seeing now a movie franchise given this treatment, God, I want this for everything. I want this for Jurassic Park. I want this for RoboCop.
I was just about to say, give this to me in RoboCop.
Bring them on. Keep going. You can do it with
Get Peter Weller to voice it.
Do it with Poltergeist. Do it with anything. Just keep going. I think you could have all kinds of fun with it. I don't think you could hardly name for me a like a horror franchise or a dark sci-fi franchise that this wouldn't be great for.
This is what I've been pitching for Nightmare on Elm Street for like the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Because
And
that's the only way that you could get England to do it now.
And we would be remiss if we didn't mention Mattson Tomlin, who's the showrunner for this. And did he write every episode? He wrote most of them.
He wrote every
I saw his
episode.
name on I thought all of these scripts.
Yes, he wrote everything.
He was an uncredited writer on the Batman, but I think he actually did a decent amount of work on that. And he's the sole writer. Will be the sole writer for the sequel. So that's an important note. Is that we've got that kind of writing caliber on this, and it really shows. And I hope this guy does more things like this, and that Netflix or whatever other kind of companies that might think to do this, give this treatment to some other classic franchises can find this caliber of writing. My best thing with this is that thing I was talking about earlier with John, just the philosophizing, and that I was never bored with it. I love how thoughtful this is with its ideas, and that it takes the bits of Terminator that everybody's kind of tired of, and and makes a really interesting a really interesting metaphor about the human condition out of it. Like, it takes the time travel of Terminator, the question of is it fate or free will, no fate but what we make, and makes that about the human condition. It takes the whole of history of humanity and says we're like Terminator time travel. The paradox of we can't tell if we could change because we never have. And that really hit me in a place. I thought that was profound. I'll go as far as to say, and I don't love everything about this show, don't get me wrong, but I thought that idea all by itself was kind of nigh genius, actually. That now at the same time, I don't know how I feel about this being concretely the way Terminator time travel works, because I always like the ambiguity of it. So you have to almost like cheat and change it from what I thought it was, because before it was always just, and this is why I don't want to keep going back to the well and making Terminator sequels that keep pushing the date off, because I like the ambiguity of it's maybe fate, it's maybe free will. At the end of the day, Judgment Day is always going to happen, and it's just an unanswerable question. It's always going to be a loop, and this show says, and I'll go ahead and spoil this now that we're almost at the end of the sign flips, and we'll start getting into some full on spoilers, but this show says every time you go back in time, which by the way makes the Terminator seem like complete morons. I just got to throw that out. But every time, like, how do they not figure this out? Okay. Every time you go back in time, you are not going to a time period that you can change because you're not in the same timeline anymore. Because by definition, it's impossible to like change the past and make the future that you had different, and so you're actually basically winding up in a different reality. And
it's the end game thing.
It's the end game thing, yeah, which seems to be getting more and more popular as a way to do time travel, and is not my favorite. I honestly have always more appreciated the kind of Back to the Future or Star Trek time travel where you can in fact go back and change the past, but there's also a little bit of still kind of an ambiguity to it. There's almost like a chicken and the egg question of, are you going to a new timeline that didn't exist before, or are you actually changing the future but you're creating a new timeline and doing it so the future that you came from would still happen in another reality. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's like, are you in a universe that existed already, or is it many worlds theory where you've created a new one? It doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, the point is the people that you care about from from your perspective, present, that you used to live in, will continue to live on, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the old lady prophet woman in the future that knows everything somehow, it's made a big mystery. We don't know how. I have a theory about it. It's maybe a whack, stupid theory, but I have a theory about it. I have half of a theory about it. But she says, and I thought this was really interesting, that the whole point, the whole thing that separates humanity, that maybe even makes, it seems like what she's saying, maybe even makes us like worthwhile creatures, worth existing, is that the best of us would want to go back and make a better future, even if we don't experience it. That's the point. And that's the metaphor of the time travel, is that we in fact can change as a species and do a thing just because it's right, even though we've not proven that very often in our history. I love all of that. So it's just about the ideas for me. Tacked on to that, though, I also could have said voice acting, because it's mostly all really, really good. And especially our protagonist, he's fantastic. I don't know who that guy is, but good lord, he's good. And I like the animation quite a bit as well. My worst thing with this, I'm gonna say, is kind of the ending. Like, to work out the idea that I'm talking about, it kind of needs to end the way it does, but I found myself left kind of wanting at the end. And I just saw that for the first time yesterday, so I haven't fully processed it yet, but like, I had almost the opposite experience as John. Like, I was really into it from the very beginning, and I don't want to say the end was a full-on letdown, but it was kind of anticlimactic to me in a way, where it's like, I can't get excited about it if we never get more of this, and I don't know if we will. Like, it feels like it wants to be a standalone thing, but I got to the end of this and I'm like, okay, if this continues, I'm kind of intrigued. But if it doesn't, I don't know how I feel about where I'm left. And that's kind of where I'm at.
That's Netflix. It'll get 3 seasons and then they'll cancel it.
But John, it feels like a miniseries. It doesn't feel like a thing that should have more. And I don't like the fact that I want more. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of where I'm at with it.
No, I also kind of need more. So I want to go back to the time travel thing for just a second, just because you've already talked about it.
Let me flip my sign.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. Mine is a bright green. I ultimately really, really happy with this and really enjoyed it.
You should have flipped red just to be different.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Well, John's wearing red, so there's red on the screen, so you know.
And Robert,
you talked all positive about it, and then like, yeah, I'm not feeling this.
And Robert, the atmosphere is just killer.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I love the animation.
I wrapped myself up in it like a blanket. I loved living in this.
Well, and shifting the location to Japan was such a refreshing change of pace.
Yeah,
like, I love that choice that we're not in LA again.
That was, I think, a thing Netflix asked for, where they were like, if it's going to be an anime, it's gotta be Japanese in some way, shape, or form, and that's the kind of mandate I can get behind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's yeah.
It feels like it's expanding the world in a way we never let the movies do. Like, oh yeah, what is going on in Japan? Like, are there resistance fighters over there? And it's interesting.
John,
I liked the. Real quick, I liked the alternate. I really enjoyed the alternate 1997 kind of futuristic vibe with the robots and where we're at with technology, which they do explain, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, and part of the reason that works is because of the philosophical idea and the way the time travel is handled, because it is a little awkward without that idea that every timeline has the potential to work out differently, that we're not extrapolating from our future further. Like, this whole thing is a period piece, but it's futuristic. Like that's weird. Even when we get into the future, some of it at least is our past already. And so we're just in this weird alternate timeline where we're still extrapolating from 1984 like we always were with Terminator. And it ultimately works because we're basically, but this is the weird optimism of the piece. And I don't know if I'm overthinking this, and I don't know if Mattson Tomlin has thought about this, but there's almost this meta component to this, Jayson. Did you think about this? Where if you're saying that almost every time period Judgment Day happens in 1997, and you have this horrible post-apocalyptic future, we live in one of the only universes where it didn't happen. And that could be an intentional optimism of the piece.
Yeah,
because I was gonna say with the way that they've set up time travel, and Austin in the chat said that Sarah Connor Chronicles and Dark Fate also have the same kind of time travel. 2 arguably does. It's just never spoken about.
Yeah.
I just find it funny that like no matter what type timeline, if all these are branching timelines, that Judgment Day happens in all of them.
Yeah.
Like we're just screwed.
Well, it's so refreshing because it's like, oh, this is like Dark Fate, but smart, because this has similar themes that movie did, but it's thoughtful about
And
it.
Austin's right, that's probably more or less how the time travel works, but there was always this kind of ambiguity to it because it's never spoken that I always appreciated. So I'm a little bit conflicted on that point, but for the story this is telling, that is the way to do the time travel.
Yeah, the first movie is the only one with simple, clear time travel. If you're just taking the first movie on its own terms, it's, okay, this is just a closed loop.
Yeah.
You know, like
And then
Kyle
you
Reese
can't
is always the father.
ever do it again.
And then 2 completely changes that.
Yeah. John, I'm sorry, what point did you want to make 5 years ago?
Oh, it was just that the time apparently Dark Judgment Day happens in every universe, and we're just screwed.
Okay, let's go ahead and get into some spoiler talk. I want to ask you guys, so spoilers, everybody. This is now for folks that have seen the show or who don't care if we tell you everything that happens in it. I'm a little confused on one point because there are places where, what's the main guy's name again? Malcolm. There are not Miles Dyson. There are places where Malcolm is talking about Kokoro as if his timeline is the only place where that exists, but then the future that the main resistance woman comes from, which I would say would have to by definition be a different reality than he's from, probably. I guess I'm not actually sure about on that point.
I don't know.
So if I understand the way the whole time travel works, because I had a big question about her, because I think she's the big thing that so this can't fit in with those first 2 movies.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Is they could be technically from the same future, but the minute that they travel back, now they're on a different trajectory forward.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is that she is sent back to stop him from activating that.
Right.
Because in their timeline, Skynet is at war with Kokoro. And they're kind of stuck in the middle.
That's what I thought, but there's a couple places where he's got lines that make it sound like Kokoro never existed in the future, and I don't know what he's talking about. Where he's like, this has never happened before. And I don't know what he means when he says that.
So then I guess the idea, if that's true, because I might have missed that. If that's true, then I think the idea is that he comes from the future that we see in the Terminator movies. And then he comes back and he changes things by creating Kokoro. So he creates this new timeline that our other future protagonists are from.
There you go.
Where Skynet and Kokoro are at war. I completely missed that. So then, yes, this could count. I think I prefer this being its kind of own thing. But I have that with most of the Terminator sequels. I like just the simplicity of the first 2.
Sure, but I like the way they talk about it because it could go either way, and I like that like John and Sarah Connor are never evoked. They just say the various resistance fighters that have gone back.
We're not going to make it, are we?
In all these different timelines, like I like that. But John, I think you and I have kind of accidentally maybe pieced it together because when the prophet lady says every time you go back you're going to a different timeline, that means that those two cannot be from the same time period.
Yeah. She has to be from whatever future he created.
I think
I also
that's
think it's
what's
really
going on.
interesting that a character that is from that war-torn future goes to AI as the solution.
Yes, I love that.
But won't let his kids have a stupid robot cat for some reason.
Well, let's explain.
It's sort of explained, Robert. The thing with the robot cat is, like, because he never speaks to it enough. Like, we get the backstory from both him and his kids, but you have that idea that it might be less about the fact that that it's robotic and more about the fact that he can't deal with cats because of what happened to his wife.
Yes.
But he also already has a no robot and AI policy in his house.
Yeah, my issue with that explanation, Robert, is it's the typical anime thing of, oh, that's what they said then. I'm going to not respond to that. Instead, I know where they went, so let's go to the next story beat.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, when we find out what Misaki is, I thought it was just, yeah, he just doesn't like the cat because it reminds him of his wife.
I mean,
that's all I thought.
He's also famously has a double standard. Like, he will work with AI, but doesn't allow his kids to have a simple robot.
Well, like that didn't bother me because like it's his AI, and he thinks he's hoping he can control it, and he's also like kind of what's the word I'm looking for? In his mind, he thinks he's created God. So like it's very different from these other technologies that he doesn't trust because he doesn't have his hands on them, and he knows what's going to happen with Skynet. So like I'm fine with him not wanting robots in the house. I just wasn't totally sure if the cat thing had actually anything to do with it at all.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. I'm also unclear on that. And then to answer your question a little bit ago, that is the English voice actor for him is Andre Holland. He has not been in anything I've seen, but he was in that movie Moonlight, which was apparently very popular.
Okay.
So with this being Terminator Zero and we have Godzilla -1, what's the next for this like trilogy of zeros?
This could be RoboCop. It's gonna be RoboCop 0.
Would it be RoboCop
plus one.
Positive Zero?
Plus one.
Plus one. Please. No, like legitimately, that is my most wanted like thing if we're gonna do more stuff like this. Because I like RoboCop more than Terminator in general, and we need more RoboCop.
I also have to say, getting back to the story here with the whole cat robot thing and all of that, John, you can't and this is a really stupid minor point, but I have to complain about this. You can't take a thing from retail, even in Japan, I wouldn't think, out of the box and then expect to return it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't think that so. Logic made no sense. Where the kids are like, and I don't care that she's a robot. She doesn't know that she is, and all things being equal, she understands how the world works. So these kids are like, oh, we're gonna take it out of the box while Dad's not here, and then you can take it back later. And she's like, well, I don't see any reason you can't do that. And I'm like, well, I do. You're not going to be able to take it back. It's an expensive robot. You got to take it back to the toy store.
Kind of useless. Like she lets them keep the cat. Like, oh, I'll return it, even though you can't do that. And then, like, when they're out when it shifts and like she has to be protector, like she kind of sucks at that too.
Jayson, who was your favorite character and why?
My favorite character was the old woman who said the F word once, and it was hilarious. Was that the Prophet?
Yes.
Okay. She's great, and I like her voice. No, it's not actually my favorite character, but she's really funny in that pilot. No, my favorite character is probably Malcolm, just because I really like that storyline.
This is going to sound so superficial of me, but I think part of the reason that I don't know, just emotionally disappointed with the ending is he died, and that's who I cared about. And so I was imagining, like, at the same time as I'm going, well, I don't know how I feel about some of this if we don't see, now that they've managed to stave off Judgment Day, and Robert, you I think it was you that mentioned Watchmen earlier. I had it with the ending too. I'm like, oh, now we've got a nuclear deterrent, just like Watchmen. So at the same time as I'm going, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this unless we get more of it. We see where this reality goes. At the same time, I don't know if I care about any of the rest of these characters enough to watch more. We lost Malcolm.
Right.
Yeah, and I think another issue I have, especially when you get towards the ending, when we do that flip and you find out that the Terminator really wasn't a bad guy all along, is they just made another John Connor. Because he's going to broker peace between humans and Skynet, and he's the one that sent the Terminator back in the first place.
Yeah,
the inventive kid.
And you're right. That's
that.
the other problem with that ending is it has all of the rest of the big hallmarks of plot points of the first two Terminator movies that the show hadn't gotten to yet. So also the kind of female John Reese has to, even though it would have been post 97, she has to in her future get together with somebody and like have an important kid and all that. Like all of that is baked in there. Jayson asked me at the start. He was like, "Is that woman gonna like fall in love with somebody in the show that's supposed to be born later?" And you do that whole paradox. I'm like, I was 7 in, and I was like, not as far as I know, unless it happens in the last episode. And then we're told that it will later.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, I don't remember what happens to her. Oh, yeah, no, you don't have to recreate everything from the first two movies.
Yeah, but yeah, I do like how she's kind of a mix of Sarah Connor from the second movie and Reese. I do like that. But
yeah, I mean,
I like how
it's fine.
They kind of take the Sarah Connor Terminator 2 personality, but make it the kind of Reese storyline.
Yeah.
Make her the character from the future. I don't know. They do use a lot of stuff from the first two movies, though.
So here's the thing. This is one of those shows... Sorry, go ahead, John.
I just don't like the idea of there being another John Connor. Like, that's kind of the whole point, is he's the most important like member of the Resistance. I didn't need them
in that timeline.
It works in this because they play it like a multiverse.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's
but
also...
then what happened to this universe is John Connor?
I don't know.
Well, he may never have been born. It's possible that we're in a reality where Sarah Connor never, never got with Reese. Like it could.
But then, if that doesn't happen, does Skynet still happen? Because my reading on that first movie has always been Skynet only happens because they send that first Terminator.
Well, that's true too.
True. I didn't read this as John Connor doesn't exist. It's just we're in Japan. We just don't talk about him, and the most we address that stuff is they keep sending Terminators and people back over and over. It's this endless cycle of whether it's John Connor or another supposed savior, which was what Dark Fate was trying to do, and this felt like both a reference and kind of a middle finger to that. Like, yeah, that was stupid. So we're addressing it. I appreciated that. So that stuff didn't bother me.
Yeah,
that's a good point. That it's easy to forget that. Because the future all looks the same no matter where you are, but they're not in America there. Skynet again does seem really stupid for never figuring out how the time travel works. They just keep thinking they can change their future. The humans figure it out. I don't know why they can't figure it out.
Well, and like I said, as a Terminator fan who loves the first two movies and likes things about 3 and especially Salvation, I like Salvation. Okay. This is a thing where if you're a Terminator fan, you should definitely check this out. But if you're a Terminator purist, it might bother you, whether you're a purist of just the first movie or the first two. Because, John Connor's not mentioned directly. And this is trying to be canon with the franchise as a whole. It is very, on a meta level, acknowledging the faults and time travel nonsense of the whole series and trying to make that work with the branching timeline idea. So that stuff worked for me, but mileage will vary depending on how much of a purist you are. When it comes to that stuff.
That's true, but it's so easy to treat it either way if you want to, and that's what I kind of like. There's a nice cop out here that they actually kind of get away with, I think, where you can treat this as full on canon if you want to, or you could just treat it as extra media that does not count. Like either way, you can enjoy it on either level. I don't know why a Terminator purist couldn't enjoy this as an extra thing that doesn't count if they want to.
And I already have that with the last 2 movies. I already don't count those. So. And then 3 and 4.
Sure, and I'm not like a headcanon guy, but this just gives you that out. Like,
And I guess I'm in the minority here in actually liking the subplot with Misaki and the kids. It's a little drawn out and repetitive.
Yeah.
But I'm a sucker for a story about a robot who doesn't know she's a robot, because they present you this mystery with her, like, because I knew a couple episodes in, like, okay, she's getting important. Is she a robot? She's a robot. Okay.
That stuff is fine. I just hate Kenta, and I want him to die. And when he was about to die, I was like, please just get rid of him. Like, I hate him.
You wanted them to murder that miner in cold blood over the cliffhanger, and then that's the reason he's upset about the about the teases, because he's like, I know that kid's not gonna be
but
dead.
The problem with the teases is every time they do the tease, it's always with a child, and it's like, well, you're not gonna kill a child.
There's no way the show goes that far.
The whole her not knowing she's a robot is a potentially interesting idea. I think it's just bogged down by, like, most of those kids I found really unlikable.
I didn't have that.
She doesn't. She's not very good at what she's trying to do.
John, on Wikipedia, it says that she's the sweet and protective babysitter.
Yeah, but she's bad at it.
Well, she's kind of a prototype.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, what I liked about Kenta, though, is
she's basically lore to your data, but not evil.
Yeah, but you can't be babysitted by a giant eye.
No, I'm glad that Jayson brought Kenta up, though, because I didn't like him either, but his character totally tracked for me. I really enjoyed how that stuff paid off with how he treats his younger sister with the cat and saying it's not real, get over it, and then his issues with Misaki and where it goes. Like, I appreciate that his whole arc tracked, and at the end, it's a fake out, and you as an audience member kind of know what choice he's going to make, but I still appreciated that. I bought where that character ended up. Yeah, and I did like the tension with him and his dad, where he's the one most like his father, which is why they're the most kind of apart, because his father doesn't want his kids to be him, because he's doing this to make a different future for them. So all that stuff totally plays.
He's most like his father on like an analytical level, but he doesn't romanticize the technology like his father does. He's just curious to know how things work. Did you have the thought, Robert? Because I think this was interesting, and I haven't been able to spend a lot of time like breaking it down to get a really great analysis of it, but so this is just a partial idea on my part, but we have the whole like kind of triune god idea baked into Kokoro, and this guy's got 3 children.
Yes,
and that's intentional. And his 3 kids are all aspects of his personality.
That's correct, and I think that's where I can nitpick the finale a little, or I'm sort of in the same boat as you guys, is Kenta gets a lot of attention in the finale, and that stuff tracks, but the other kids kind of get left behind in the finale, and I didn't feel like there was a strong enough payoff with them, with their relationship with Malcolm. Again, maybe we'll get that into season 2, but that is one of the things that let me down a little, is the youngest girl gets a lot of attention early on, and then by the last episode we kind of forget about her or push her in the background. I felt like there was some emotional closure with them, because remember, she's the one with the mother when she dies, and I kind of kept waiting. We keep talking about it like we have all the information we need. There were just more conversations I was waiting to have happen in that finale that we didn't really get to, and that was a little disappointing.
And I will say with Kenta, it is good and interesting to have a character. I will say it's a good idea to have a character in a Terminator thing, who doesn't really care about doesn't like robots, or doesn't like robots that are very personified. I think it is interesting to have a character like that, and I feel like you could do that right, but he's just really unlikable, and like for a good reason. I just don't like him.
Yeah, he kind of. I like parts of Kenta's arc in like the first few episodes. He kind of loses me around that time where like those people ambush them, and like the babysitter has to like fight them off, and one of them's gonna kill the youngest sibling if she doesn't like surrender or whatever, and he shoots her, or he shoots the attacker and then turns the gun on the babysitter. It's like I thought we addressed this like an episode ago that like you realize your dad made this, so maybe it's not all bad. So that kind of felt like a little bit of a regression.
Did you think that was overly dramatic?
That too, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So why does Malcolm leave?
Because it's Terminator. Sorry.
I think I think like the second episode. Or maybe even the first.
Oh yeah, I don't have an answer for this. Go ahead.
He leaves talking to the AI because we set up, he's talking to the AI, and then he gets a call from, his kids have left, so he goes out looking for him, for his kids, and then he's
in the car with Masaki.
Yeah, and then he just goes back and he's with the AI.
The very next episode, he's back in that room.
No, I don't know why he's back there.
I had that question too. I was like, did I miss something?
Whatever.
I gotta get through this thing.
Yeah.
I'm glad it wasn't just us then, and I saw it twice. I had it both times.
I don't really know what happened there, but...
Yeah, that felt like something was missing.
We're just past an hour. The last big point, because I almost mentioned this a few minutes ago, you kind of set me up for it, then we went somewhere else. I want to make sure that I bring this up real quick. Just going back and addressing the member berry question with this, because I feel like you could, and this doesn't whole work for me, don't get me wrong, but I want to throw out kind of the devil's advocate argument with this for a minute and say that this material maybe gets away, whether you see it as a cheat or not, maybe gets away with some of the like greatest hits. Do you remember the moment when stuff? Again, thematically, because we're talking about a material where history keeps repeating itself. And, like, that's a big, like, idea and theme in this. So the question is it ever being like clever or making a point with showing you things that like visual motifs and stuff that you've seen from Terminator because of the idea that like history just keeps happening the same way over and over again, and can we change that? Or is it always, well, you remember that thing from Terminator, so we have to put it in there because it's Terminator.
So I mean, I'm more forgiving of some of those like remember this moments and some stuff. I can definitely write some of that off as like history repeating itself because we're still back now. We're back in '97. The reason I'm a little harsher on it in this is just because I've sat through those like 10 times at this point.
Okay, but you want to know the worst callback? When
What's that?
Okay, so there's this really cool part.
Real quick, let me just say, John, I'm with you. I wish we could just go forward with a Terminator thing. Like, I'm totally with you. But if you're gonna do the time travel thing again, like, at least they had something to say.
Yeah, that's what I was saying early on, is like, I didn't want this to do the time travel thing again, but the show wins me over as it gets going, as it gets good. It's not what I wanted, but I was still won over by it.
I'm just legitimately shocked that nobody said, I'll be back.
Right.
No, that's not true.
No.
No,
I was about to say it!
Let Jayson break it down. Go ahead.
Okay, so they do this really cool thing where they shove the Terminator down an elevator, like, thingy, right? And
it's the second time in the show you see that happen, which is really funny.
Really?
Yeah, the first 5 minutes we have.
Oh yeah, with Willem Dafoe Terminator. Yeah.
Where he's like Darth Maul, but his body doesn't get kidnapped,
yeah.
and then
they make him fall down an elevator. So the real Terminator, the normal one that we have through the show.
The Hitman Terminator.
Yeah.
The Oliphant. Yeah.
Yeah. They shove him down an elevator, and then Aiko says, he'll be back. And then right after she says, so you can stay here or you can come with me.
Of course they did.
In the same sentence. Or like in the same like
That's absurd.
right next to each other.
Jayson couldn't deal with it. I mean, he like was throwing things. Like he was not happy.
But like
those lines are only cool because Arnold said them. Stop doing that.
At least it's not word for word the same thing. I didn't notice it. I was looking for it and I didn't notice it.
Okay, I caught it first time around.
But like she said, he'll be back, and then I'm like, oh right, and then she said, come with me. I'm like, no.
I had the same thing.
You can't just do that.
The thing is, I'll be back, he'll be back, whatever is such an innocuous thing to say that like in that particular moment that would be the thing to say, but you also know why it's there. Like they're looking for a place to shove it in and make it not look shoved in, and that's fine. And then she's got to say the other thing.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
At least nothing will ever be worse than the Dark Fate one, where Linda Hamilton, without a care in the world, is like, I'll be back.
And this franchise has done riffs on those lines before, like in Terminator 3, it's she'll be back. And then, so we've done that before. I don't know. I guess I was less bothered by the Memberberry stuff than anyone else here, just because I didn't find it that egregious. And context is everything. I just saw Alien Romulus. That movie's 10 times worse with its callbacks and references. This was a breath of fresh air for me compared to that, and to some of the other movies.
I don't know if franchise. I agree. There's a couple of egregious spots in Romulus, but it's not that bad.
Nothing in this bothered me as much as the "get away from her" line in Romulus. Nothing in this bothered me as much as that.
I don't know. Now that Jason's told me, the he'll be back is kind of bothered me more.
It totally played fine. Well, the first callback line I noticed.
That's because you didn't notice it, Robert.
Well, the first one I noticed, I think, was a Salvation callback with when she says Ico or Eco, where she says she says something. We are dead. We are all dead. I was like, oh, that's a Salvation line, or it's from the first movie, and I just don't remember it. But I think that's a Salvation line. So I don't know, and it's just I was looking for that. I was watching it like, okay, we're at the police precinct scene, now we're doing the massacre. If you're a big fan of this franchise, you're gonna notice stuff, but you at least usually got through it quickly. And then in the finale, they do kind of a John Connor, Sarah Connor thing that I was like, okay, I didn't need that. That was one of my gripes. But again, compared to other things, compared to other movies in this franchise, it's like, look, it's a Terminator thing, it's a time travel thing. The callbacks didn't bother me.
They walked the line.
I thought it was pretty subtle.
They walked the line between homage and just like, subtly reminding you of something, and just full on like Memberberry. At least it's often in a totally different sort of context. Like they like to put us in settings that are real similar to the original, but the flavor of the context is not exactly the same. Like I didn't mind necessarily like, let's put the new Terminator in as a motorcycle cop again. I don't know if that annoys other people, but like that was all right. And like
that's gonna annoy somebody. It didn't annoy me.
We do a big truck toppling over on a bridge again. I don't know. It was fine. Like
it didn't ruin anything, but when I saw him like in the police uniform, I was like, oh, of course we did that. However, I do want to say one thing I really liked about the police station is we get that shot of the Terminator and he has like a built-in crossbow into his wrist.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. And then he never uses it again.
No, he uses it all the time.
He keeps using it.
That's his weapon.
Yeah. Oh, maybe I don't know. I thought he had a gun.
Yeah, you were like doing your bills the second time you watched the show, so you missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't.
I'm just kidding. But no, he does.
No one will know what John was doing while watching Terminator.
He does keep using it. And then of course, all of these, when you get to the end, we have to come up with some excuse for all of the skin to come off, and you get the full on.
Yeah. Yeah. Can we talk about? Oh, never.
Sorry,
go.
go ahead. No. Let's get John and then Jayson and then let's go ahead and get out because we don't have time to. We'll be back though, everybody. You know, for more videos.
I
later
said
on.
the thing.
Go ahead. John. Come with us if you want reviews. Go ahead, John.
Did anybody else find it a little cheap that they hide the fact that the babysitter's a robot, that when she cuts herself she starts like bleeding profusely?
What do you mean?
So there's that scene in episode 2 or 3 where the robot like cuts herself when she's making dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like bleeding profusely because they want you to think she's human.
Well, that's what Terminators
That's
do.
what they would do.
Like, they bleed.
Yeah, but I mean, like Arnold in Terminator 2 cuts the entire skin of his arm off, and he doesn't bleed that badly. It's mostly just like stuck to the metal.
So
Yeah, but the idea is they have living tissue. Like, they have hearts. Like,
And also she's not a Terminator, so she's not built the same way. Like she's.
Well, that's.
Yeah.
I think what's going on there is like it's kind of freaking her out, but she's doesn't entirely notice it because there's that scene where one of the kids is like, "Dude, you're like bleeding a lot," and she's like, "Oh," and goes to the bathroom, but she doesn't seem to be in pain like a human would. Like
that's the point of that, John. I had the same thing. Now I didn't catch what the point of it was until a second viewing when I knew that she was a robot the whole time. But going back to it, the breadcrumbs of that are supposed to be like, I don't think it's a cheat where they're trying to fake us out into not realizing she's a robot. I think it's something is weird about the way she's responding to the blood, and the mystery is, why is she not feeling pain or looking at or just feeling weird about it? We keep doing close-ups on it, on the wound, and like, you remember that scene where later on, I think it's just before she finds out she's a robot, where she like pushes on it real hard and isn't wincing or anything, and they close up on it. It's real gross looking, and we're supposed to wonder there's something weird going on with that.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Can we talk about real quick? Can we talk about the horror elements of this?
Go ahead.
Because I thought the stuff with the Enos, which we haven't talked about that much yet, but where that's what the robots are called in this. They all do the like dial-up modem thing, and it's really creepy, but like also really funny, and that was probably the best part about the like kid stuff and the action stuff for me, was just that scene where they're like all the robots are making dial-up sounds.
I didn't expect them to get creepy. I thought that was actually a decent fake out, where they seem like kind of funny and pathetic at the beginning, where, like their heads spin around, and then when they become the enforcers for Kokoro later on, they're really creepy. There's two things about them that I don't buy. One is that there's so many of them. Like, I don't know why there's so many of them. And the second thing is, or at least this is more about the online thing. It's 1997. It seems like a somewhat more futuristic 1997 in that you have robots working in places in Japan. I don't know if they're anywhere else in the world. We're never told, I don't think. But you still have dial-up internet. Do you buy when Kokoro goes online and she says, I now have the sum knowledge of all of human history? I'm like, no, you don't. It's 1997. Like, I just don't buy it. How much information, even in this somewhat more futuristic 97, would still be in books and can't possibly have been uploaded yet? I had a really tough time with that.
It didn't bother me that much.
I didn't think about that. But no, yeah, especially because, like, this is obviously a very advanced Japan. I don't know if the United States is this advanced. Like, I could see the United States still being like the films where it is just a normal 80s or 90s America.
Yeah. Where, like, the internet doesn't become remotely widespread if it's at all like our history until 1994. So you're saying in 3 years, The sum of human knowledge is on the internet already.
In
And
the palm of
also,
her hands.
it is dial-up, and we can maybe I'm reading too much into that, and that's just kind of a fun throwback thing they're doing because it's the 90s. But if it is in fact all dial-up, she can't go online and instantly not only have everything uploaded into herself, but also make the decision about how she feels about humanity. She can't be Ultron, not in 1997.
Yeah.
Oh, and Thomas Lowe just said the same thing I did. Japanese Ultron. That's exactly what she is. But it doesn't work then if it's dial-up. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, what they should have done is have her be moving really slowly because it's dial-up.
So,
and she's just tying up phone lines.
Yeah, nobody in that like lab can call anyone. She's on the internet.
Just somebody get Kokoro off the internet. I've got to make a phone call. It's not just because she's taking over the world and turning Japan into a police state and murdering people. It's because I need to call my grandma.
So, Cap, a question I'll ask you then is, then in the old movies, does Skynet's motivation ever bother you, or do you really think about it? Because the idea of Skynet is it's a military defense system, and the second it goes online, it determines, oh, well, obviously humanity sucks, and I need to destroy all of them. Like, does that track for you fine?
It helps that it's ambiguous enough about what exactly they know. Like, now, at that point, Robert, we can just argue about whether or not they're having like all of the government's like classified files and stuff would be enough to get Skynet to that place. My problem is it's just a bridge too far to say some of human knowledge.
Oh, that's totally fair. Although I did really like Kokoro's arc, or where they kind of land on it.
Yeah.
The idea that because we usually in these stories do the Ultron thing of, oh, well, the second an AI goes online and it's going to decide, oh, humanity sucks and we need to destroy all of them. I love that where the show lands on Kokoro and the idea of an AI having free will is, oh, it's just going to make the same mistakes that humans make. I really liked that.
And I didn't realize that was Rosario Dawson in the English dub.
No, yeah, I didn't know that.
It took me a few episodes to notice it. Where I was like, wait a minute, I think this was.
I never caught it. I didn't know that until I looked up the cast list today.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay, I know John's got to go to bed. Is there anything else we absolutely have to say or have to bring up real quick?
It's still one of the best Terminator projects since 2, even though I have complaints.
I will admit,
I'm giving it the participation award.
I will admit that, I mean, obviously I loved atmosphere and stuff, but it is a more interesting show to think about than anything. And I'm not saying that it only works on paper, but like the thematic stuff is absolutely the most interesting stuff to me. And that all by itself doesn't make a thing good. And I don't want something to just be like a philosophy paper. But I did appreciate how much story is actually happening through the philosophy paper. So like it gets away with that for me. But I'm with John on the kids stuff. I did think that was stretched out too far. I mean, I think I liked it slightly better than you did, John. But
okay, Cap. The real question is, what Star Trek episode is this?
Well, I mean, I'm reminded of lots of bits of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of like data lore and
yeah, Measure of a Man. That's an obvious go-to.
Measure Man's obvious, and then there's certainly some Iborg in there, and just like the Borg ID in general, certainly. But there's not like a singular Star Trek episode.
So you're saying that the Terminator at some point should have said resistance is futile?
Sure. I mean, I guess Kokoro is basically a Borg queen that makes sense.
Well, and also with the Eno stuff, I was also reminded, oh yeah, this is kind of what we do with the slave labor robot stuff in Picard, but this is probably done better.
Yes, that's true. I had that thought too.
Robert is Picard's biggest fan.
Sure. I haven't seen it.
Actually, Jayson, I was reminded... okay, when John says what, like if I had to go to a singular episode, you know what it is? It's a more twisted version of The Offspring.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Were you not thinking about Lol when she goes, I don't want to be a man, I'd rather be female?
Yes, I totally was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Offspring.
Yeah,
There we go.
The Offspring.
I got you one, John.
So
There you go.
come out and play.
Austin says
wait.
it's clearly most like the game from TNG.
Shut up, Austin.
I don't know what that means.
How?
He's just messing with us. It's not like that in any way whatsoever. And
Did
Austin
they in
did see the
fact
show.
play a game?
He's just trolling
I
us.
wish it was.
And there's not anything like as much sexual innuendo in this show as there is in that episode. So, no.
Man, that episode.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of like the robots being controlled is like the closest,
Sure.
you know,
Sure. Anyway,
and like it's technology based.
everybody, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed tonight's review. We'll see you again real soon with more stuff. John, Robert, thanks for sticking with us for so long, man. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
I'm glad we got to watch something decent.
Yeah.
John couldn't decide where
we watched 5.5 seasons of Smallville. There was decent stuff there.
I mean new things, John. This has been an okay year for things. I've actually flipped my sign green some, which has been really nice.
No, this is actually, at least for movies, because I try to watch at least like as many 2020 like new releases as I can. Austin and I kind of compete to just see like who we can watch the most. This has been a really good year for movies. I watched that A24 Civil War the other day, and I thought it was great.
I've heard okay things about that. I had major reservations about the setup because I just did not understand the idea of making a thing where you didn't tell us what the like what the actual argument was that got us to a civil war. But people have told me that's not actually a problem. So I don't know. I'm gonna watch it at some point.
I didn't have a problem. So it just came to Max, which is why I watched it. I didn't have a problem with that. I almost didn't watch it because I didn't really care about like a political Civil War film.
Yeah.
But I'd heard that it was the opposite. I was like, oh, I'll check it out. It's on Max. I really liked it.
Interesting. Well, I'll finally check that out. I mean, I'm open to it. I just thought that just sounded really counterintuitive to me. Not counterproductive. Counterintuitive. Those mean different
I
things.
think it's mostly an issue with the marketing because they market it really hard on like this is a movie about a civil war.
Yeah.
And with the AI posters.
Yeah. Anyway.
I hadn't heard about that.
Well,
yeah, they used AI to make posters for that movie, and they look terrible. And people noticed and complained about it, right?
Stop it. Get some help.
and people can tell right away. Why are we doing that?
Hire an artist. Frauds.
All right, folks. We'll see you again later. Once again, I was Captain Logan. This is Jayson.
That was me.
There is John and Robert, if we can believe that is in fact Robert, because
I don't think it's him. I think he's been switched with the Terminator.
You don't know nothing.
Gosh.
Well, anyway, goodbye, everybody. See you later, folks.
Bye.
On that note, good night.